Hey y'all, and welcome back to There's Danger Here. I'm Leilani. The Amber Alert system has been around since as long as I can remember, but there was a time when there was no system for the notification of missing children. Before then, there were hour delays between a child going missing and critical information being sent out to the public, often via the local news. What happened to change all that? Well, unfortunately, Amber's case did. Amber Hagerman was born on November 25th, 1986, to Donna and Richard, the oldest of two children with a younger brother, Ricky. Amber was born and raised in Arlington, Texas. Her parents split when Amber was 7, and Donna raised the children as a single mother. Donna stated, "That's about the time that Richard started drinking, and he became physically abusive to her, though he never hit the children. After police were called multiple times, they eventually threatened that they would have to take away the children and put them into state care. Donna said that was enough for her. She packed her bags and left, hiding in her car for a couple days, and then going to a woman's shelter for 6 weeks as they helped her secure an apartment and get her on welfare. In 1995, Donna was approached by a film crew making a documentary series involving single women and how they got off welfare after finding her in a women's shelter. One producer, Pam Curry, stated they wanted to document a single mother of two children. After a lot of no's from people, they were about ready to give up when a contact led her straight to Donna, who, though initially reserved, thought maybe by learning about her life, she could help other women in similar situations. In August of 1995, a local film crew started filming the Hagerman family with producer Pam involved. Pam directs some questions while filming their daily life. And at the time, Donna was going to school and volunteering at the food stamp office. At the time, Donna was allowing Richard to have some visitation rights, stating that he was their father and he should be included, but wanted to make sure he wasn't drinking or scaring the children because of it. On November 25th, 1995, Amber's 9th birthday is filmed at the family apartment with her friends and family, and the crew seem to enjoy the children as if they are their own during this time of filming. Then on January 13th, 1996, the film crew finished their documentary with a plan to release it the following Thursday. The same day, Donna takes her children to visit her parents, Jimmy and Glenda Whitson. Donna states that they went to Castle Park, hanging out for a couple hours before the children had requested to go back to their grandparents to hang out. When they got home, they got on their bicycles and rode around the neighborhood. The two children rode around together at around 3 p.m. Ricky said that they always rode around the block, which makes essentially this large triangle shape, and typically they do it in right turns to stay on their loop. But on the 13th, they took a left and went to an abandoned parking lot. There was a ramp connected to an old grocery store, and they wanted to ride down it. It's the type of ramp that was used to unload groceries and stuff at the time, so the built-in concrete style. But Ricky got scared and said they needed to go home before they got in trouble. Amber told him to go, and she'd be right behind him. But when he got home, Amber had not caught up, and immediately Jimmy, who was out in the driveway area, asked where they went. Ricky told his grandfather that she went to an abandoned parking lot, and Jimmy immediately threw Ricky's bike in the truck, and the two went to go get her. In the meantime, a 911 call comes in. It's at 3:18 p.m. 78-year-old Jimmy Kevill reported a black pickup, like a Ford, pulled up over on Abram Street, grabbed a girl, and took off toward town. He was a non-African male, less than 6 feet tall, with a medium build. Amber screamed, and that's what made him call in. See, Jimmy's yard faced the old store, and he was out doing yard work when all of this happened. And that's how he became the prime witness. He just watched Amber be kidnapped. Jimmy and Ricky arrive shortly after the call is made, and they see Amber's bike, but she's gone. At around the same time, a patrol officer pulls up and ends up getting Jimmy's statement of looking for Amber after Ricky getting home without her. Jimmy had to return home without Amber. Donna phones Richard almost immediately and informs him that Amber had been kidnapped and to get over to their parents' house, like now. Pam gets a call from her husband saying that the family needed her. She called Jimmy and Glenda's house and found out about the abduction around the same time. Immediately, she picked up and headed to them, along with the film crew. So, as this is happening, Richard shows up to the house to help search. Donna was told to stay home while others went out, but they really didn't know where to go as this man had left via a truck. The documentary crew arrived and started filming to show the family side, what they did, how they were reacting, and how they were getting the word out. Mike Simons, a local detective, gets a call about a possible child abduction. Detectives comb the parking lot for clues, such as tire marks, but there was really nothing of value. And so a bolo goes out for a pickup truck. And another detective reported that he pulled over probably more than a dozen trucks that day. As again, we're in Texas, and this is a pretty common vehicle, and the description was just a black truck that was possibly a Ford. At approximately 4:30 p.m., police notified the media outlets, and they began showing up in mass at the grandparents' house. The 6 o'clock news reported on the kidnapping at the time. Pam's crew put out some of their footage. They decided that live videos of Amber were needed for the public. They wanted them to see her and not just some still photograph. And as a result, the community was deeply impacted by this live footage. Donna made pleas for Amber to be let go. Immediately, calls come in with leads. Eventually, over time, they'll receive thousands of leads and followed through with all of them. In addition, the police were talking with those close to the family, of course, including the documentary crew. Richard was interviewed and his alibi checked out immediately, as there was surveillance footage of him and where he said he was at the time of the abduction. Friends and family post flyers and search for Amber, and this starts to go on for days. By day 3, there were no credible leads, despite all of the tips coming in. Police continued to look at those close to the family. A few people gave the name of Mike Thompson. Mike was a family friend that Richard lived with at the time. He also appeared to insert himself into the investigation, which was considered a red flag to the investigators. And Mike owned a black Chevy truck. Police had enough concern that he was brought in for questioning, but Mike even said on public television that he welcomed it and he knew why they had to interview him, but they weren't going to get anywhere. And sure enough, after review, Mike was a delivery driver and his deliveries were time stamped. At the time of the abduction, he was approximately 30 minutes away. After exhausting checks of those that the family knew, police were resigned that it was in fact a stranger abduction, which occurs less than 1% of the time in these cases. By the 16th, a task force was created with 15 detectives and FBI agents. They branched out to contacting local sex offenders and checking in on them. Helicopters stayed out and neighborhoods were searched. The neighborhood was sympathetic, and they were also scared for their own children, realizing that this was a stranger abduction. On January 17th, another 911 call comes in. A woman at an apartment complex located just 3 miles from Amber's grandparents called and said that her husband had found the little girl people were looking for at the park behind the apartment complex itself. At this time, a storm had rolled in and there was a ton of rain. The woman's husband, Eddie Cocker, went down to the creek and promised that he would grab her and prevent her from floating down the river if he needed to. Police showed up and noted the child's body was caught in shrubbery around the creek. At the same time, an advocate for the police department went to notify the family that a body was found but not yet identified. They needed the crime scene to be processed as they headed towards her. Meanwhile, the family sat and watched news coverage throughout the night, waiting to see if they broke with confirmation of whether or not it was Amber. Mike Simmons positively identified Amber and let the police liaison know it was her, then gave her just a measly 5 minutes to inform the family before they went to the media to break the news. Amber's autopsy was made priority. not only to get the evidentiary value and information immediately, but to get Amber to her parents faster, as the coroner would not allow Amber to be viewed or touched by the family until their process were complete. It was completed in a day, and Amber was brought to a funeral home where Donna finally got to see her daughter. The autopsy showed 5 large lacerations around her throat and minimal signs of decomposition, consistent with Amber being killed Tuesday or Wednesday. No sexual assault appeared to have happened, and other than the lacerations, no other peri-mortem wounds were identified. During investigation, it was noted that the park was accessible via 2 separate gates, which were supposed to be locked, but of course one of the 2 gates was broken at the time of the event. There was also security cameras located on the grounds, but due to the storm that had happened to roll in, it obscured the footage, to the point where the only thing you could see was this dark truck roll into the complex. But that was all. The cameras were shaking, and there was, water and stuff obscuring kind of the visuals. Nothing else was able to be taken. Everyone in the apartment complex was interviewed by a police team. Eddie was considered a suspect. He was interviewed multiple times and finally took a polygraph to get cleared. On January 20th, Amber's funeral was held and over 2,000 people showed up. The community rallied with Amber and her family. Ricky said he remembered the funeral, but not when they found her. He didn't know what death was and kept saying, quote, "Wake up, sissy. It's time to get up," end quote. A few of the detectives showed up as well, in part to pay respects, but also to observe those who attended. They had additional surveillance from a distance to monitor those coming and going and see if they noted anyone who stuck out or anyone who kind of stayed on the periphery and might have been suspicious. Because again, we know that killers often like to relive this, and so they'll go to crime scenes, they'll go to these events, they'll insert themselves. But here, they still didn't get any leads. Briefings were held twice a day for a long time to try and keep momentum on the case. Then, eventually, a woman came forward stating she actually saw the whole abduction, including a better description of the truck and a partial license plate. Off that, police worked with Ford and found a truck that matched the better description that was given, and it had the correct partial license plate match. Police go to the house and find a man who complies with the request to be searched. The police go in, and after the investigation on him, he was eventually dropped as a suspect. There was nothing. So they go back to the woman and start talking to her, and eventually she caves. It comes to light that she made up the whole story. She felt bad for Donna and was trying to get police amped up with this kind of information and see if she could just get something going as a result. Donna and police both reported their frustration with these false leads, and not just with her, but all of the false leads that came in, because that took time and resources from the investigation and the potential of actually finding the real killer. Donna became angry that the killer wasn't found, but instead of lashing out, she became an advocate. She pushed to have better resources for police. She was a force at town meetings and school board meetings. Donna kept getting Amber's story out there, sharing it and the ordeal that they went through. Donna also returned to school and completed her degree in medical school, stating she had to go on for Amber. Donna continued to show up to the police station to hear about anything new, stating that there was a room of books filled with tips. In the meantime, she heard over and over that if information had gotten out sooner, maybe more could have been done. That began to formulate a plan. Along with Deanna Simone, who heard about the story on the news by seeing Amber on the TV at the time of the abduction. She was a local resident and thought more needed to be done. She quickly realized that there was a 2-hour delay between the news media and when she had actually been abducted. And so what did she do? She picked up the phone and called a local radio station. The station asked if she had information, and Deanna said no, but in fact she had an idea. From there, the radio stations and Diana proposed getting out information by playing a loud, obnoxious noise to get people's attention, and then relaying information such as suspect information, vehicle information, license plate if able, and victim information. By October 30th, the plan was announced as the Amber Plan, making it a partnership between law enforcement and broadcasters during a time of crisis. People immediately said yes to this and approved it in masses, allowing all radio stations to have broadcast emergency announcements in this way. The Rayleigh Bradbury incident would later solidify all of this into law. The Dallas Amber Plan officially began in July 1997 to help safely recover missing children that police believe had been abducted. Still, it was a while before they actually used it for the first time. Then, in November of 1998, police get a call. There was a missing baby named Rayleigh Bradbury. Her mother, Patricia Sokolowski, spoke about this. They lived in the area, and Sandra Folis was a friend, and so 2 months after Rayleigh was born, Patricia dropped her off to her before heading to work. In the evening, Sandra hadn't shown up to drop her back off at home, so Patricia called hospitals, and no wrecks were reported to have come in. She went to the house, and there was nothing, so Patricia called the police. After discussing the information, police decided this was the time to enact the Amber Plan. A sound came on, and the announcer broadcast Rayleigh's information, the name and description of Sandra, and the vehicle she was driving in. Within 30 minutes of the public broadcast, a 911 call comes in. A man said that the vehicle was in front of him. He gave his location and direction of travel and pulled up next to the vehicle when you hear the man say, "The baby is in front with her." The police pulled over Sandra, and Rayleigh was returned to her mother. It was a resounding success. With that, other cities and states started pouring in with calls to the Arlington department trying to figure out how to set up these programs for themselves. Then, in 2000, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children took it on. In 2003, President Bush signed off and assigned a coordinator to head the program nationally and started turning it into what people know today. As an example of the nationwide launches, Indiana's Amber Alert launched on October 1st, 2002. As with Indiana, each city or state's Amber Plan program is administered separately in accordance with Emergency Alert System (EAS) procedures approved by Federal Communications Commission. Each program establishes its own Amber Alert criteria, activation procedures, and distribution methods. For example, the Indiana Amber Alert Plan has 4 alert criteria. The child must have been believed to have been abducted and in danger of serious bodily harm or death. The child must be under 18 years of age. Request must be recommended by law enforcement agency of jurisdiction, and there must be enough descriptive information to believe the broadcast will help. However, missing adults and runaways do not qualify. Children taken in child custody disputes generally don't qualify for Amber Alert unless there is an indication that they may be in serious danger. In one of Donner's interviews later, she stated to Yahoo News, quote, "It's a shame my daughter had to be butchered and had to go through what she went through for us to have the Amber Alert, but I know she would be proud of it," end quote. In another interview, she talked about being broken, that Ricky found happiness in his life, and that really makes her happy as well. She also stated that Amber loved to take care of others, that she knows she would be proud of the Amber Alert system, and that it continues to help children. And eventually, Rayleigh was interviewed years and years later, and she said that she considered Amber to be her guardian angel, and sometimes she would pray to her or say things to her throughout the day. And lastly, according to U.S. Department of Justice, up to 4,600 children are abducted by strangers every year. That's about 12 children nationwide every single day. And with that, to all those out there listening, be careful. It's a dangerous world we live in.